thrill me.
This show is part of the Thrill Me Podcast Network. Experience more on Facebook and YouTube.
It's Review It Man, reviewing what he can. Movies are his jam, so let's get twisted, man. It's Review It Rob.
Hey yo, welcome into the Review It Rob show. Appreciate you clicking in and checking out the show. This week we're going to be reviewing Godzilla X Kong, or Godzilla and Kong, The New Empire. Spoiler free, of course, thoughts on that, the latest film in the Monsterverse. So we'll be talking about that as well as things that are happening news-wise, DC, horror, any other things I've found around the realm of horror. We're going to be talking about that on this episode, man. So appreciate you joining in. We're going to have a good time here. Without further ado, let's jump into some Godzilla and Kong talk here. The film is rated PG-13 for creature violence and action. Is a sci-fi action film, and it is 1 hour 55 minutes. I tripped up saying action twice there. It's currently in theaters. So, Godzilla X Kong. I've seen the other Monsterverse films leading up to this movie, of course, and then I did do a rewatch of Godzilla versus Kong before jumping into this movie. So, other than that, all I've seen is the trailer one time. Didn't watch the trailer any other times. I feel like I didn't even see it in theaters all that much, to be honest with you. So when this movie was coming up, I was like, cool, another Godzilla film. These films are, movies where you're gonna honestly have to turn your brain off and just watch. I think we're all there just to see the monsters battle. We're like, we want to see the big lizard fight the big freaking ape, and they're just gonna go haywire, and they're going to fight all these other monsters and all that stuff, and it's going to be beautiful, right? I think that's what we go into for these movies. So, I did do Godzilla vs. Kong rewatch. I didn't watch all the Monsterverse films again because I didn't really want to take the time. And honestly, it snuck up on me. I've been such in wrestling mode with playing the video game and watching past WrestleManias that I didn't get a rewatch in for the Godzilla films and the Kong films. So, it snuck up on me, but I did watch Godzilla vs. Kong before, and still not the biggest fan of that movie. I know some people have enjoyed it, and again, putting too much into it probably, I guess, but, the battles were awesome in that movie. No quarrels there, but story, meh, and all that stuff. So, had a little bit of hesitancy going into this movie. Plus, earlier this year, I saw Godzilla -1 minus color, and that movie is just freaking unbelievably fantastic, and that's just solid from story to action and all the above in that movie. So I was like, how is this going to sway with me? So I had to turn that part off. Again, I had to turn my brain down some clicks because the main thing going into this movie is I just want to see Godzilla, and Godzilla's going to be different in this movie because Godzilla's going to have the pink, and I wanted to know how that was going to work out and all that stuff because we've seen Godzilla with the blue. So I'm like, okay, pink, he's evolving. What is happening here? How did he get the pink and all that stuff? So figure that out while watching the movie, and then of course see what's going on with Kong and how are they going to how is this going to work? It's Godzilla and Kong. Are they still battling? Are they not battling? It looks like from the trailer that they're battling, but it also looks like there's an outside force that maybe they're fighting. I don't know. Haven't seen the trailer in a while. So, had all those thoughts going into this movie. So, without further ado, the synopsis. The latest entry in the Monsterverse franchise follows up the explosive showdown of Godzilla vs. Kong with an all-new cinematic adventure, pitting the almighty Kong and the fearsome Godzilla against a colossal, undiscovered threat hidden within our world, challenging their very existence and our own. The epic new film will delve further into the Titans, their origins, and the mysteries of Skull Island and beyond, while uncovering the mythic battle that helped forge their extraordinary beings and tied them to humankind forever. Okay, so that happened in that movie. Okay, Rotten Tomatoes has a critic score of 55%, while the audience score is at a 93%, making this the highest audience score for all the films of the Monsterverse. And IMDb has it at a 6.7 out of 10. So, what were my thoughts on the movie? So getting it out of the way right away, the monster battles are freaking fantastic in this movie. We have a good amount of battles here. We have a good freaking view of them. I like the way they shoot the battles in these movies. I like the way it all works out. I like the intensity that's involved in them, and like who's gonna win and who's gonna do this and all that stuff. That stuff is awesome. enjoy that, of course. And again, I think that's one of the main reasons we end up watching, or one of the main things we're looking. It's like watching a NASCAR race, right? You want to see the wreck, even though that seems wrong. You don't want to see anybody get hurt. You want to see the craziness, right? I guess that's just at the ingrained nonsense in our brains, but we want to see that. Or if we're watching wrestling, we see a ladder match. We want to see somebody jump off the top of the ladder and crash into somebody else out on the floor, or go through a table, or something like that. Like that's just something we want to see when we get these kind of things. So that stuff is good. Like there's not a single bit of that stuff in the movie that I have a problem with. Like I enjoyed every single bit of it. That stuff freaking cool. Story, I think the story is much better in this film than it was in Godzilla versus Kong. I like it. I like the way that and of course I don't give spoilers here, so I got to talk around myself to make it not spoil anything. But I like the way that they handle Godzilla and Kong in the movie. Kong is if you saw Godzilla versus Kong, you know that Kong is um, receptive to humans, and Kong understands there is this girl, and they are able to communicate with each other and all that stuff. I get that. That's interesting. That's fine, I guess. So Kong is gotten comfortable there, and Kong is in Hollow Earth, which is something we saw as well in the last movie, Godzilla vs. Kong. So all that stuff. Godzilla is still being the king of the monsters and conquering other titans that are out there and any things like that, and gathering up power and all that stuff. So Godzilla's still out there being a badass, right? So I like the way they handled all that, and eventually how it's going to lead to those two meeting again, all this stuff. I like how they handled all that stuff. Human aspect, it's fine, I guess. It's better than it was in other movies. Again, we don't want to see the humans, right? It's kind of thing people have always said about Transformers movies. Like, we don't want to see the humans, man. We want to see the robots. Um, they're there. They're fine. The story is easy enough to, understand and have a little bit of a heartfelt moments with, kind of mother-daughter aspect between the mom and daughter, obviously. Um, but yeah, it's acting is fine. I have no problem with the acting or anything like that. It's a good time. There's some good solid laughs in the movie as well here, and those mostly come from the characters Trapper, played by Dan Stevens, and Bernie. Bernie is back. He was in Godzilla versus Kong. He, of course, played by Brian Tyree Henry, who's always been great. Enjoyed him and everything I've seen him in. So those guys handle the comedy. The comedy aspects are very good there. Millie Bobby Brown is not back in this movie, neither is her father. Those two characters seems like their stories were done. I would assume. I looked it up. The director pretty much said their stories are done as well. So don't you have to assume there. That story line has pretty much ended with them. So, and I would assume Millie was busy with Stranger Things or Damsel, one of those two things, probably while doing this. So interesting that they weren't in there, but nonetheless, it doesn't really hurt the movie. Doctor Andrews and Gia, of course, are the main characters here, as they probably pretty much were in as far as Kong goes in the past movie, and now of course this movie. They're more of a focal point. So human aspects, that's where you're going with. You're going with the mother-daughter aspect, and what ends up leading to there was cool. It's fine. I get it. I understand what they were doing there, but we were there to see the monsters, which I can agree were really cool and really awesome how they handled all that. All the battles were great. The story involving the monsters was really cool. Like, and of course the synopsis just says a colossal undiscovered threat. So they don't spoil it in the synopsis, and I don't remember if the trailer showed it or not, but in fairness, I'm not going to say what the battles were and who they ended up battling, but freaking sinister, right? Especially who Kong had to go against, and then, of course, how things lead into later. Like, that freaking, that monster was pretty freaking evil. And there's a monster with that guy that is just, the badass as well. So it's a fine movie. I had a lot of enjoyment while watching it. I did enjoy it. I had a good time watching the movie. I enjoyed it more than Godzilla vs. Kong, if that tells you anything. I don't know that I would say it's better than King of Monsters or even Kong Skull Island, but it was fine enough. It's obviously nothing like Godzilla Minus One. That movie is just a fantastic film on its own. It's not connected into any of this whatsoever. Don't want to unfairly compare the two, but it's just no you're not getting that level, that Godzilla -1 is. You're not getting that with this movie. But at the end of the day, if you go into the film, turn your brain off just to watch a freaking monster battles between titans, you're in. You'll enjoy it. You'll have a good time, especially in. I watched an RPX and hearing them roar really loudly and it shakes your freaking seat and all that stuff. That stuff's cool, and that just builds into a good time. So it's a good time film if you're just going in there to just relax, escape from the world, which is movies supposed to kind of be. Escape from the world, watch these things battle each other, have a good time. It works. So Godzilla X Kong, or Godzilla and Kong, the new Empire, is a fun time, if you ask me. So those are my thoughts on the film, man. If you saw it, let me know in the comments what your thoughts were. So there you go. That's Godzilla X Kong. Real quick, did 3 reviews last week. If you didn't see any, happened to run across them real quick, I reviewed Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire. So there you go. 2 movies with the Empire in it lately. Immaculate, horror film starring Sydney Sweeney, and I reviewed Sum 41's newest and final album, Heaven and Hell, man. So check those out, please, if you get the time, on the Thrill Me Podcast Network is where you can find those. You can find the podcast on any of your podcast streaming services, but you can find those, especially I did a video for the Sum 41 thing, so you can find that on the Thrill Me Podcast Network's YouTube. Please like, subscribe over there. That would be very awesome of you to do, so I would appreciate that very much. So that is my review thoughts on the film. As far as, should have said this before, but I'm never in order when I do these shows. I'm always out of line. The film did very well, box office wise. It's the 3rd highest grossing film of the year so far, falling behind Dune Part 2 and Kung Fu Panda 4. Wow, go ahead. Look at you, Kung Fu Panda 4, doing pretty well. Not too shabby, not too shabby. Not a whole lot of competition is happening this year, but nonetheless, it's good to see for Kung Fu Panda 4. And this movie, I believe, has already outgrossed Godzilla vs. Kong. Or it's on the fast track to outgrossing Godzilla vs. Kong, as the film had 194 million globally in its opening weekend. So, as far as the future, I don't know. I haven't seen. I don't believe they've announced anything future-wise for these movies in the Monsterverse. But this movie didn't make a lot of money, so there's a good bet there. Warner Brothers needs money for sure. There's still reports and rumblings that Warner Brothers will be selling to Universal in April, and April is officially here by the time you're listening to this episode. So, hey, we'll see what happens, man. I'm still hoping very much that Universal ends up getting Warner Brothers, but we'll have to wait and see what happens there. As far as credit scenes, there are none. There is not a mid-credit scene. There is an end-credit scene. There are 0.0 credit scenes, which again makes me wonder. But I say we'll probably see more. We'll probably see more of these movies. All right, going into news time. DC is where we'll kick off things here with a little bit of an update on The Authority. That is something, one of the projects that James Gunn has announced for the DCU. He kind of gave us an update on the Authority, kind of. Of course, Authority, that's the team of the anti-heroes, known as the Anti-Justice League. Gunn was asked a question about the Authority on Threads. That's where Gunn does most of his social media. And he said, quote, "We won't greenlight a film until we have a finished script we're happy with, and in general, we won't cast a film until the script is finished." Gunn goes on to say, "This is why some projects are moving faster than anticipated and others more slowly. It's always going to be quality first, no matter what," end quote, which I like. Yes, give me a quality film instead of giving me a bunch of films right away. I'm so glad the comic book films are starting to slow down, and they're not releasing like 20 in one year. And I know 20 is a big number, but that's what it seems like. It seems like there's just so much. It's like, hey, you got all these movies and you got all these TV shows you got to watch. Like, dude, who's got the time? like give us a little bit here, okay? So yeah, I'm glad they're taking moments here. I mean, when I look at DC, like all we have this year is movie-wise Joker 2. Like that's it. We have Creature Commando show, which is the beginning of the DCU. It's animated. I don't think Penguin's coming this year. It may be late this year for Penguin. I don't think they've actually given us a release date yet for the Penguin, but I could very well be wrong, but I don't believe that's been announced yet. But yeah, I'm glad they're taking their time, work slowly, Do not overly push this stuff out. I think that is the right move there. As far as other things happening or maybe not happening, Linda Carter, who you may know as Wonder Woman, you should know as Wonder Woman. Of course, from the TV show back in the day, she was Wonder Woman. She has talked on the possibility of a Wonder Woman 3. And she said, quote, I don't think they want to do it unless there's enough pressure from fans. I just don't think they have the mind to do it. And I don't understand that because it seems to me that Wonder Woman is different from other characters. She's not just a superhero. Her whole thing is about peaceful solutions. She's not aggressive to be aggressive. It's a different story. It's about inner strength, outer strength. I don't know why they tabled it because it's a great franchise, end quote. So, like I mentioned, we have the DCU, which is a new beginning of DC stories over there in the Warner Brothers line, and DC Studios being the first time of a DC Studios over there. So, Wonder Woman, the first movie, is fantastic. Absolutely love that movie. It is still considered one of the best comic book movies out there. Wonder Woman 84, not met as much with as much excitement or positive reviews. I've honestly haven't seen 84 since it came out streaming. Don't have much of a desire to watch the movie again, which is crazy for me as a DC fan and as a person who loves Gal Gadot and love what she's done with Wonder Woman. And I thought Cheetah was cool in that movie, and Pedro's in the movie. We all love Pedro. There's just something about that movie that's like, even Chris Pine's great. There's just something about that movie where I'm like, I don't have a desire to watch it again. And Linda Carter was in that movie. She was teased as playing another character. But now that they're moving into the new DCU, we don't know who Wonder Woman is, right? We don't know if Gal Gadot is going to be back. She was in Shazam 2, but remember, Shazam 2 is not part of the DCU. So, was that the last time No, she was in The Flash. Last time we saw her was in The Flash. So, I don't know. I mean, in a world where we're getting a new Superman and we're getting a new Batman, I don't know why we would keep Gal as Wonder Woman. Not against it. I like what she's done, but also at this point, I'm like, if we're recasting, just recast, you know? Um, so I don't know what they're doing with Wonder Woman. I know they announced a show for it. Wonder Woman was not announced to be in the show. It's going to be more focused on Themyscira, which is great. I love that idea. So at the moment, we don't know. That would be feasibly where we would get our first look at Wonder Woman in the DCU, but at the moment, they don't know. And I don't know. So I think the reaction of Wonder Woman 84 really hurt any possibilities of a future Wonder Woman film, and then we're just in the waiting period. So that is the DC news for this week over in horror. Speaking of waiting, we're going to have to wait a little bit longer for The Wolfman. Blumhouse is reimagining the Universal classic Wolfman film has been pushed back into 2025. It was scheduled to release October 25th of this year, but they have now moved it to next year, January 17th, 2025. Lee Wanell is behind the film, as well as teaming up with Blumhouse again. They did Invisible Man together, met with very positive reviews. That is a very good movie that I do need to rewatch, and I have a lot of excitement for. I love the Universal monsters in general, but I have a lot of excitement for this movie just based on how good the Invisible Man film was, and I kind of expected this, to be honest with you, because October 25th seemed quick. I know that's still, I mean, we're in April now, so still a number of months away, but it just seemed like we were getting nowhere with that movie for a while. Um, so yeah, it makes sense, and Blumhouse likes to release movies early in the year, right? You go back to a couple years with Megan, and then this year they had Night Swim, which was not the best, but um, yeah. So Wolfman will be the first horror film of next year, possibly, kind of. January 17th, that's about the third week of the year, so we'll see what ends up happening there, but has Blumhouse had another movie that came out this year? I feel like they did. So yeah, they had Imaginary come out this year, and they had Blumhouse. They had Blumhouse. Blumhouse had Imaginary come out earlier this year, so that was in March. So a couple of movies already from Blumhouse this year. Night Swim, one's not a fan of, but I enjoyed Imaginary. It's getting, I think more people are starting to see it and they aren't liking it. Night Swim came out January 5th. So yeah, Blumhouse has a tendency for January releases. When was Megan? Megan was like February, right? Megan, at 2.0, first one. Megan was January 6th. So yeah, they like to release movies in January. So yeah, I liked Imaginary. Night Swim was not a fan of, but I have a lot of hope for the Wolfman. Hopefully, that ends up being just as good as, if not better than, the Invisible Man. So we'll see how that all works out. A movie that's getting a sequel that I'm not sure needs a sequel is Ready or Not. Ready or Not 2 has been pretty much announced to possibly be happening. They haven't fully confirmed it from the articles I was reading, but it's being talked about, and Samara Weaving may return to the film, or Weaving, yeah. So the first movie came out in 2019. Really enjoyed it. A lot of people have really enjoyed that film. Surprised me when I saw it. Was not knowing what to really expect. Saw the trailer. I'm like, oh, this looks cool, and then ended up renting it. I was like, cool. I like that. It was an enjoyable movie. And anytime I watched it since then, I'm like, yeah, I like that. It doesn't need a sequel, in my opinion. I don't know why we would need a sequel to that movie. I will obviously see it, especially if Samara's in it, but I I I don't think we need it, right? Um, that's uh that's one of those things where it's like you can just let that one live on its own. Like that movie doesn't need a sequel. So we'll see. A movie that is getting a sequel, which probably a lot of people are like, we don't need it. But for me, I'm like, cool. Is Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 3. Man, Blood and Honey 2 just came out, right? It's in theaters right now for a limited run. But Blood and Honey 3 has already been announced and will have a bigger budget than the previous films and will introduce new characters from the original Winnie the Pooh stories, including Rabbit, the, what is that, Heffalumps, and the Woozles. So I've never watched a dang thing of Winnie the Pooh in my life. So I don't know if I got any of those names right, but I did see the first Winnie the Pooh Blood and the Honey film, and I don't care. I had a good time watching that movie. Like it was fine. It felt like a pretty solid slasher movie to me. So I'm interested in seeing part two. I'm interested in seeing what they do with three. Sounds like it's gonna have a bigger budget. They announced the worst name of all time for a universe, but they announced it, so it is official. The Pooniverse. They've announced that thing. I can't say it without laughing. I'm sorry. I'm a child. Um, so they've announced that we'll have other child characters in it. I still don't know what's going on with these freaking Mickey Mouse movies. I haven't heard a thing about those in a while. The Steamboat Willie movies. They announced two, like right away. Like as soon as Steamboat Willie became, or Mickey Mouse and Steamboat Willie and all that stuff became public domain, immediately was announced that there's two films out there and trailers came out quickly, and I haven't heard a thing about either one in a while. Like I don't even know if they're out yet. Like that's how little I know about it. So what was that? What was it? Mickey Mousetrap? Mickey Mousetrap. Yes, Mickey's Mousetrap. I always got the name wrong even when I did the trailer. It says 2024. I don't know. There's an actual release date for this thing yet, but Mickey's Mousetrap is scheduled to be released on an unspecified date in 2024. So, still nothing there. There is a trailer out there if you want to watch it, and there's a trailer reaction that I did for it. Mickey Mouse horror movie. Horror movies. Let's see. What was the other one? There was another one that was. Oh, jeez. Where is it? Steamboat Willie horror film. Come on, let's go. This is how the show works. Trying to find it. This is riveting podcasting stuff, I know. This one's coming from the person who directed the mean one. Is it just called Steamboat Willie? Okay, so it's untitled, but they're working on that now. Okay, so there is the Mickey's Mousetrap one, and then they're working on a Steamboat Willie one. So there you go. So they're working on those. I haven't heard much from that, but of course, stay tuned to the show. I'll be talking about it for sure. All right, and last bit of news, which was interesting, that kind of went around lately. Two kind of stars. Well, they are stars. Have kind of been against Marvel lately. The other one was been like Finn Wolfhard was doing one of those lie detector things, for the Hollywood Reporter or whatever. He was hooked up on it, and they asked him about if he wanted to be in a Marvel movie, and if he's asked Paul Rudd and all that for any help to get in there, and he said no. And then they asked him, "Is that because the movies have been mid lately?" And he said, "Yes." So that's gone around the realms lately, and um, he's not wrong. But you know, interesting. It's an interesting world now where Marvel is not considered the king of things anymore. Remember, it was like every time Marvel came up, it was like immediately we're giving it the highest scores on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's the greatest thing that ever existed. Now it's kind of like, those movies aren't that great. Welcome to the club, guys. Um, that not all of them are good, and then not all of them are terrible. There's got some good ones in there, but those movies have been overhyped for quite some time. But enjoy what you want to enjoy. And then the other person who came out about Marvel films was Kristen Stewart, who said, quote, "Will likely never do a Marvel movie. Seems like it's a nightmare." Um, but she did leave the door open enough, saying that the only time she would do it is if Greta Gerwig would be willing to do the film. Who, of course, has had success with Barbie and has had success with other movies, right? Now, I've never been the biggest Twilight fan, and to be fair, I haven't really given those films a fair shake. When they were first announced, I was like one of those a-holes, like, those aren't real vampires, they sparkle, meh. I was that idiot, so I really need to watch those movies with better eyes, because I prefer my vampires the way I want them, obviously. I think we all have that. But I was very overreactive about Twilight. But I ended up seeing one of them at work. They were playing it while we were working, and I'm like, oh, this is not it. This is not for me. But at the same time, I was at work, so maybe I was just, I don't know. I probably will watch them eventually again. But that kind of soured me on Kristen Stewart for a while, and then I saw her in other things, like what's that movie called, Underwater? I liked that. I thought she was good in that. And then Charlie's Angels, that movie should. I mean, that movie's actually good. I don't know why people hated on that movie so much. Um, so I liked her in both those things, but more important than that, I saw her in like late night talk shows. I'm like, she seems like a nice person. Like she seems like a cool person. I would get along with her if we ever hung out and all that stuff. So I was like, I'm gonna stop this unnecessary dislike I have of Kristen Stewart. And then, I get it. I get what's going on. Like Marvel, even Anthony Mackie said recently, about kind of the way things are over there with Marvel. It's kind of tight and can't really go outside the lines all that much and everything. So it seems like more people are being vocal about things over there, and I feel like that's probably with it's probably how it sounded with the DCEU stuff. It's very um, toxic, if you will. It was very run by they wouldn't let the creators create, and then when the creators did create, and they wanted to change everything and all that stuff. So I get it. I get that like working on those films is probably much tougher than working on like an independent film and all that stuff. I get that, but it's just interesting to see. And of course, people have their opinions on them saying those things, which is gonna happen. That's the internet these days. But it's interesting to see. It's like we're living in a different world, and like I mentioned when I was talking DC news, it's probably a good thing that comic book movies are starting to dwindle down the amount that they release in a year. I think Marvel only has Deadpool this year, right? So um, that MCU only has that. There's still Kraven the Hunter, I think, coming out this year on the Sony side. Venom as well, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, we'll have to see. And I'm sure Marvel has a show coming out this year as well. But it all is what it is in the end. So that is it news-wise, man. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Like I said, please let me know in the comments what you thought about Godzilla and Kong if you saw it. Let me know your thoughts on um, Ready or Not 2. Let me know your thoughts on that as well, because that seems like am I the only one that's like, maybe that doesn't need a sequel? But of course, we'll see it anyways. As horror fans, we're going to watch any horror movie. But does it really need a sequel? What are your thoughts on that? And that'll do it for this episode, man. So appreciate you, as always, taking the time to listen to me ramble on about movie stuff. I have a good time doing the show, and I hope you have a good time listening to it. But that'll do it for this week's episode. Appreciate you all. Hopefully you return next week, and we get to hang out again. But until then, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day, week, month, and year. And as always, remember that happiness can be found even in the darkest of times. One only remembers to turn on the light. Talk to you all next episode.